Basically, for the last few years, we've had elections which were relatively better in terms of overt violence. And because they were relatively better because of overt violence, we did not have, for example, murders, actual use of petrol bombs and things like that, all of which we are seeing during this election. So the texture of the violations have really got more serious. And we've also seen different kinds of violations. As you know, these are a lot of social media stuff goes on, disinformation, misinformation, very calculated targeting of both campaigns and individuals. So we are seeing that, but in addition to that, we are harking back to the older times when we were actually, some candidates feared for life. For example, we've had already 2 incidents of murder yesterday itself. And of course, the jury is out. Was it actually about the election or was it about something else? But certainly they are candidates. And if they are candidates and they are involved, then it has to be about the election, and it relates to their role. Otherwise, why today? Why yesterday? Why in this context? There were a number of the 339 local government bodies. There were a number of nomination papers that were rejected at the district level by the district secretaries. They're the chief returning officers, and some of them were rejected on the basis of substance. That is, if they didn't have the percentage of women, candidates and so on, then that's fine. But there were some that were rejected on the basis of technicalities. The most ubiquitous of that was when a birth certificate or some other certificate was not a certified copy in terms of the letter of the law. So many applications were rejected because the birth certificate of the candidate, of the prospective candidate, was certified by a justice of the peace or a notary or somebody else, has been done. So a narrow ruling was, because it says it needs to be a certified copy, the narrow also rejected that. So many went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court actually upheld that this, because it's a certified copy as opposed to a true copy. Now this is semantics, right? A true copy can be certified by these notaries. Certified copy has to be certified by the original designating authority. So if it's a birth certificate, it's the people who issue the birth certificates, the Department of Registration of Persons, or the birth and death registry. So therefore many were rejected. That was upheld. But some went to the Court of Appeal on this same ground, and the Court of Appeal held. Now, if the Supreme Court upheld that, it has to be a certified copy, certified by the issuing authority. The Court of Appeal said no, it can be certified by a recognized notary and somebody who is authorized to certify. So you can see complete contradiction. So both are applicable. So as a result of that, many who went to the Court of Appeal are now reinstated. Their nomination papers have been taken in. Some who went to the Supreme Court were rejected, and so their nominations are not being taken in. Some after that did not pursue the Court of Appeal, because the Court of Appeal gives you a writ. No. So that is a very specific kind of thing. So when some other people went, that was rejected. But the bottom line, not to make too fine a point of it, is you have 2 decisions. One is contradictory to the other. So what do you do? So now we are implementing both. Some nomination papers have been rejected on the basis of the Supreme Court decision. Some have been accepted on that same thing on the basis of the Court of Appeal. So the question we are asking the Election Commission, very important, is you need to find out which of these holds for the next election, or even for those who have been penalized under this, because it's not equal, no. Well, we have certainly taken a tough stand about what the President has been going around in his rallies and saying, and we see that as a violation of the basic law, because from the transcripts that we have and the translations we have, the bottom line is he's basically saying, if you want money allocated through the local government authorities, the Pradesh Sabhas and the other local government authorities, you need to have a NPP controlled local government authority. If not, we don't trust them. And we, in fact, in the statement in Manar, he says we'll have to check it 10 times before we allocate the funds. So that's now we have identified 8 places where he has said that, from the 30th of March until the 20th of April, right through. And even in his latest, once we have raised this, and we're happy to note that as of the 19th, I just got the letter today, the Election Commission says, and I think it's worth quoting this because it's an important letter, subject complaint against the violation of election law by the Executive President during the local government authorities election campaign 2025. Now this is social media because it is in his official social media Facebook account. It's also carried everywhere, both in media and in social media. So that's the vehicle, and therefore it means that the impact is much greater than the thousands who are there at that meeting, because it's relayed and re-relayed and it's on YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. Anyway, what they say is, he says, with reference to our letter, we have sent 2 letters on the 2nd of April and on the 18th of April outlining this. He said, the Additional Commissioner for Elections says, I would like to inform you that the Election Commission has sent a letter on 19/4/2025 addressed to Secretary to the President with contents and statements in the above complaints, that is CMEV's complaints, and requesting the Secretary to inform His Excellency the President that statements of this nature could cause prejudice to other parties, groups and candidates contesting at the local authorities election 2025. So that's the extent to which they are going. They are saying that it is prejudicial. Now this is the first time it's said in public, so if you air that, it becomes the first time, because this, we just got the letter. This was also contested, so again it's part of the process. When a newspaper carried an article saying this complaint has been made and they contacted the Election Commission, the writer of the article says that he was informed that the letter had gone on the 12th. So he carried that. Then there was a rebuttal from the Director of Information. The actual Director General of Information wrote and said, this is fake news, please remove it immediately. No such letter had gone. So then went back and forth, and now it looks like the letter has gone on the day that the Director General of Information said that no such letter had gone. So you can see, but it raises the question, why should the Director General of Information, the Department of Information, intervene in an issue that relates to the President in his capacity as a campaigner for a particular party? The Directorate of Information, the Department of Information, is a state body. In this case, it's an individual, right? It's an individual who's acting in multiple capacities where there is a conflict of interest. He's the Minister of Finance and the President, and when he says, I will not allocate money, or we are suspicious of allocating money, so therefore best for you to do that, he's doing it as an individual. So the state is not involved. So you see, there's a whole set of issues that come up, certainly less egregious than that was there during the presidential election of the previous incumbent, but nonetheless it bodes ill, because we've already seen 2 or 3 instances where other people have taken up this thing and said, you need to vote for the NPP because you won't get money. So we have cited a couple of those examples as well. Yeah. I'm sorry to say this, it gives me no pleasure to say it, but I think the signs, the portents are not good. We're seeing the two incidents of murder yesterday, right? And an escalation of this stuff. Targeting, it looks, looks prima facie that some of these are contract kinds of things. They're not spur of the moment. At least certainly the Dan Prasad thing does not seem to be a spur of the moment. Of course, somebody will say it may not be related to the election, but nothing is entirely ever related, entirely, or ever unrelated. He's a candidate. So everything he does, and this was going up to his apartment on the 6th floor, so it was known, it was, the modus operandi is very, very similar to the modus operandi we've seen in other similar kinds of contract sorts of things, and we had the court, the bomb in the court, at least, sorry, the shooting in the court. So I think there is a connection. We are now living in a very violent society, a polarized society, where issues are resolved with a gun, with bombs, with threats and so on. So that is bound to percolate if it's unchecked. And I'm sorry to say, but the police do not cover themselves with glory. I mean, we've had an incident again where some people were arrested, and the usual story, they had to be killed because they were caught running away because the police was taking them to identify a hidden cache of guns in the middle of the night. Now, which police would do that? And if they're handcuffed and legs in manacles, and how are they going to run away? So it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And in fact, I'm worried that the judiciary also seems to accept that thing and say that it's okay. So this was something that the current government said we will not have anymore, but it's still happening. One thing I would like to say as a kind of indicator, because we are looking at impact and so on. The impact is very high. Remember, you don't need to have 60 incidents of violence to make something to have an impact. One incident, well articulated, well expressed, clear, gives a clear message. It's only inefficient people who have to kill 10, who have to hit 10 people to send the message that I don't want you coming. One person is good enough, right? So I think, and that's what I'm worried about the president's statements, brings this to a very clear thing.